I'm going to be coming out of Luke chapter 23, but before I get started, I have to say I witnessed what Brother Reggie was telling us about, how y'all need to take turns sitting back here and watch Lily sing, because she gets excited. She gets excited. I don't know how she's keeping her balance. It got me riled up. I was like, next time I sing, Lily, I'm going to have to stand behind here now so I can do that. I have someone to hold on to, swing my leg. But I am going to be coming out of Luke chapter 23. And I usually don't name my sermons, but I named this one, Do We Deserve Grace? Do We Deserve Grace? And a lot of people don't even know. We talk about grace and mercy all the time, but most people don't know grace or don't know how to show grace to people or understand that when they're getting grace from somebody. But I do believe there is no greater example of Jesus extending grace to somebody or to anybody like in Luke chapter 23, verse 34. And it simply says, Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I want to end it right there because I ain't worried about them parting his clothes. But forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that to me, that is just the greatest example we could give somebody of showing grace. For what is grace? And I Googled it, because now you can't find a dictionary anywhere. You have to Google it. And sad thing is, when you scroll, you get a lot of definitions of grace. Most of it has to do with royalty or something else. Finally, once you start scrolling down, it finally says, in the Christian faith, this is the explanation of what grace is. It says, the free and unmerited favor of God. And that's really what I want to focus on, what grace is. That simple word, unmerited. That's what I want to focus on. It's receiving what you do not deserve. And we live in a society that is very, very entitled. And it's seeping into the church. You know, I'm a Christian, I'm saved, I'm entitled to God's grace. I want to ask you a question. Do you really think that the people around, when Jesus said this little prayer, it was a prayer for them people. Do you really think that they deserved Jesus taking the time to say that prayer to them? Do you really think they deserved it? I honestly believe, if you ask me, absolutely not. They did not deserve Jesus' time. They did not deserve grace. For who was at the... Really think about this. We focus on Jesus, but who was Jesus talking to? Who was Jesus praying to his Father about? First of all, he was praying about a bunch of priests who were supposed to be the religious leaders, they should have been the first people to recognize who Jesus was. And instead, they got so jealous of him because they didn't want to lose their high standings in the community. They falsely arrested him, accused him, and actually got him sentenced to death. Do you really think that they deserved God's grace? Some other ones are Roman soldiers who actually, if you read it, they really got enjoyment of crucifying a man that they knew was innocent. If you really read what they did to him, do you think they deserve grace? And thirdly, you had a bunch of people that if they really truly was paying attention and knew who Jesus was like they claimed, they wouldn't have ran and denied him. And then was hiding and scared after his crucifixion, not knowing what they would have done. They would have understood this had to happen. I'm talking about the disciples. Did they really deserve grace at this moment? No. If you ask me, my personal opinion, no, they didn't. They didn't deserve grace, but the Son of God extended it anyway. He extended grace where it didn't deserve to be extended. Because really take some time this week and think about what if Jesus hadn't prayed that prayer, and instead of done what most of us would have did, which was, as the old saying, we would have took our ball or took our toy, got mad, fussed, stomped our feet, and went home. They're not playing fair, so I'm going home. I don't want this. They don't deserve this. They don't deserve my time. They don't deserve my mercy. They don't deserve my grace. They don't deserve me being on this cross. I'm coming home, Dad. Forget it. If it was any of us, I know if it was me, that's what I would have done. Jesus didn't do that. Instead of doing what he should have done, or what he probably wanted to do, instead he extended mercy because he understood it. And grace because he understood they didn't truly understand what God was doing for them. If God's church, if God's people really understood what God is doing for them on a daily basis, his churches would be filled. The church buildings would be filled right now. But really think about if Jesus hadn't done that. Right now, none of us would actually be in this church right now. Well, why is that? Why would not? Because the disciples who ran and denied him and were scared would have had the chance to later on change, to renew their faith and change the world. I'm talking about the Bible. We wouldn't have had a New Testament to go along with the Old Testament. We wouldn't know that Jesus was fulfilling what the Old Testament said the Messiah would do. We wouldn't have all that if Jesus hadn't extended grace at this moment in time, even though they didn't deserve it. But I want to talk about a little bit more about how do we show grace like Jesus did. Because we for sure cannot forgive sins. We can't do it. I don't care if somebody tells you that they can forgive your sins, they're being led by the devil. It's pure Satan. Only God can forgive sins, and the only reason Jesus had the authority to forgive sins because he was the Son of God. We are just saved. We do not have the authority to save or condemn. We are supposed to be just his disciples, and we're supposed to lead people to Christ. But how do we show grace? And I picked the simplest thing I could think of, because this is what I'm dealing with in my life, and I'm trying to show patience to a bunch of people, to a world who is now rude and impatient. I want it now. I want it fast. Don't give me no, I don't care what it's taking for you to fulfill what I want. I don't care what it's going to take. Just do it now. I don't care what you're going through. Drop what you have and take care of me. And this has been hard for me because I have let my patience grow extremely thin. It's very hard for me not to say what I want to say when someone walks up to you and you're pouring sweat from work and you are up to your eyeballs with your job and they tell you, I don't care what you're doing, you're going to come and take care of me. You're going to do what I want you to do right now. I don't care. And they want to be rude, and they're very rude about it. And it's hard for me not to say what I want to, but this came about because a lady actually thanked me for being patient with her. And I know she saw that face when you're holding back. You're like, and you just keep on just letting them be rude because you're just like, I just need to get her out before I say something that I regret. And then she thanked me for being patient. And it taught me that I really need to work on building patience because how many people are not patient with somebody And that's the simplest way you can show grace to somebody. She realized, I could see it in her face, she realized she was being rude and I was holding back, so she thanked me for it. I was doing something she didn't deserve, which was not telling her off for being rude to me. But it's the simplest thing we can do. I see you laughing, Zach, I know. But it's the simplest thing we do is just extend a little bit of patience with someone who doesn't deserve it. Because God knows He's been patient with me. It's what I'm really dealing with right now in my life, and that's why I'm preaching about it. I ain't preaching to nobody else but me right now. I think we can all use it in this society, in our nation, who is full of fast food instead of sitting down and actually enjoying a fully cooked steak. That's the analogy I'm going to use. I will give up enjoying something because I just want it right now. I will compromise and just give it right now. And people try to do that with our Christianity too. I'm going to bypass most of what God has given me. I just want satisfaction right now. I have to remind myself that just like the people in the crowd, when Jesus prayed for them, I don't deserve His grace. And I'm about to burst your bubble, and everyone who's going to watch it on YouTube, if they're willing to watch it on YouTube, you don't deserve His grace. And if you sit there and say you do, you're fooling yourself. Because we all have fallen short of what God intended for us. And if we really did what we meant when we came down and prayed that day and said we gave our heart to God, we wouldn't have to ask forgiveness again. And we wouldn't have to worry about, am I doing a good enough job being a Christian? We'd already be doing everything perfect because we'd be already given everything. We'd already be just like Jesus. They probably wouldn't even call us by our names. They just say, oh, there goes that Jesus lookalike. That's what Christian really means, little Jesus. You're acting just like Jesus Christ. They wouldn't even know us by our name. They would just know us by Christian. I have to remind myself that I am not worthy. But do you know that He still, to this day, He says He talks to His Father. I believe personally He is still to this day praying His prayer for us on the right side of God. Because think about it, most of us would have just, if most of us was God and seen what was going on today, we would have cut it off. We would have nipped it in the bud a long time ago. Think about that. Every single time you open your eyes in the morning, God's extending you another day of grace. Another chance to witness to somebody. Another chance to show God to somebody. And then when He calls us home, He's extending the ultimate grace to us because now we don't have to deal with none of this anymore. If you truly belong to God. If Jesus can extend grace to us, and if Jesus can extend grace to them back then, and if He is still extending grace to us now, how dare we call ourselves Christians if we can't do the same for someone who doesn't know any better because they've never been taught that it was wrong to shun God? How dare we call ourselves Christians if we're not trying to teach someone who has been led astray of what God's truth is? If God can do it and we call ourselves His children, we need to be acting like Him. And it's hard to do that in a society that, they are easily triggered. That's the term now. They are easily triggered over anything. Especially, they can say whatever they want. They can voice their opinion as much as they want. But the moment you start standing up for God, you better watch your back. Because they are going to try to find some place to stick that knife in. You are condemned the moment you start speaking about God in their eyes. But them are the people that needs God's grace the most and needs all grace the most. That doesn't mean you have to accept what they're doing. I'm not saying just turn a blind eye and say, oh, well, God loves you, so, God loves you anyway. No, you need to tell them, God hates what you're doing. He loves you too much to put up with it. And if you don't want to spend an eternity in hell, which will be your choice, you better turn away from it and start seeking Him. That's a big time showing grace to somebody, because as I said, we didn't deserve someone to tell us about God. They don't deserve someone to tell them about God. I'm just being honest. Don't throw stones at me. Bricks has already beat me up this morning. Before church, he's already beat me up this morning. But ain't it amazing that even though none of us deserve it, He still took time to send somebody in our lives to let us know that Jesus died for us so that we could get right with God? So I say start small. Like I said, start showing a little bit more patience, then a little bit more kindness. Build up your confidence, and next thing you know, we'll be having, evangelism meetings in the middle of Waffle House, in the middle of Walmart, in the middle of Kmart, in the middle wherever we're at. When someone starts asking, how are you doing? You just open a door. I'm doing great. Let me tell you about what Jesus done for me. I want to end, we're reading Galatians 5, 22, 23. Zach, if you start getting ready, I'm fixing the end. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such, there is no law. So my question for you today is, how well is this fruit growing on your tree? Is it dead and barren? Or can people literally look at you and see this in you? Every single one of these is a way to show a little bit of God's grace to somebody. And that's what I have to say. I don't try to speak too long because I ramble on about things, but think about how you don't have to go all out. It's great that if you're in a position where you can bless somebody by buying them a new car or building them a house. Oh, don't we all wish we were in that position where we could do that for somebody? But most of us can't. A lot of us just have to do it in little ways. I know it didn't say the fruit of the Spirit was paying somebody's land taxes. It was showing them love, showing them long suffering. And we live in a society today that is missing a lot of this. We're missing this. It's sad to say we're missing this in the church now. Instead of coming together in this time, it seems like we're kind of falling apart. So a great way for us to practice showing grace outside of the church, or why don't we start showing grace inside of the church to each other? Start showing a little bit more love and kindness to each other instead of a little bit, well, I don't like how they cooked that casserole last Sunday. I don't. They know you ain't supposed to wear white after Labor Day. I've never understood that, but there's some people, that's how ridiculous it's getting that we're arguing over. And it says we're supposed to be one. It doesn't mean we're going to agree on every little bitty thing, but we should be agreeing on this. And this should keep us together. So, Zach, if you come, we're going to have an invitation, and then I'm going to pray, and then we'll be dismissed.